Ignite to Impact.
You're listening to Ignite to Impact, a podcast to educate and inspire positive, meaningful change within organizations and in others. I'm Dr. Geneva, leadership coach, author, and the Vibrant Life architect, helping women over 50 design their next best life. We sit down with influencers to find out how they do what they do to make an impact. I really was looking so much forward to my next guest for probably personal reasons, as well as bringing to you some incredibly wonderful information. Just yesterday, a very good friend of mine lost her husband, who also was a friend of mine. And my immediate reaction, of course, I was very sad, but I immediately went to what I knew my friend was going through and going to go through. If you've ever lost a loved one, I lost my husband of 40 years to cancer. It's been 3 years now, 3.5 years. And being a widow is a new chapter in my life that I never thought about. And but it happens. It's happened to me. It happened to my friend. It happens to hundreds of us, and particularly as women who most likely will outlive our partner. I think it's an important conversation. And so today I am bringing you Sabra Robinson, who is the founder of Black Women Widows Empowered. And that's a nonprofit organization that gives strength and light and empowerment to widows through blogging, various online and face-to-face platforms. She also wrote Widowed But Not Wounded. And she's also publisher of Today's Widowed Woman of Color magazine. So you can see why I just looked forward so much to this conversation. Sabra, how are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. And I sincerely send my condolences to you. I did not realize you've been widowed for 3 years. That's still, to me, new in itself. And I'm so sorry. I'm so glad we connected.
Me
Thank
too.
you for reaching out.
Yes, I am so. And there are many of our listeners who probably are in the same place that we've been in. We are in. That is, widows, but also, whether you are or not, I think it's important as you think about your life, as you think about, particularly as a woman moving forward, that these are all, it's part of life, the ups and downs, the losses, the grief, the joys, the happiness, the opportunities. That's what life's about, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I'd like to focus on that good part because I think that's what we need in our life. So, Sabra, tell us what got you to, why did you start Black Women Widows Empowered?
Well, I started because there were no outlets here online or here in Charlotte that I could go to as a Black woman and be open and expressive about my grief. A good friend of mine, we had visited some widowed groups, and we both were the only people of color, widows of color. And it just wasn't, when we left there, it was like, okay, what was that? It just did not, it did not touch us the way we thought, with as far as our intention, what we felt that we were going there for. We just wanted to be heard. We wanted to share our story, but we had so much inside built up that we couldn't really share our story because they did, of course they would not have been able to receive it properly because they didn't understand. And as well as online, I was looking for several online groups and just doing some searches for widow groups that, catered to the Black woman. I joined several, but, there were times when I just felt uneasy about posting about what I'm going through. And I said, you know what, it's just, and this was back in 2015, and I said, you know what, it's got to be a better way. It's got to be, and I'm just one to create things too. If I see something that needs to be created that's not there, I'll just do it, whether it fails or not. I just do it, and I've done that for almost my entire life. And so that's how it came about. Of course, because of the death of my husband, but it took me about 2 to 3 years to really create it. And initially I created an online group called Strong Black Women Grieve. It was basically a Facebook page, and it got some traction, but it just, it was about women who grieved and not, just for widows. And that's why I said, you know what, I need people to talk to. And I created, my first group that I created, other than creating a meetup, I created a meetup here in Charlotte online, and we just came together and, had a restaurant and just spoke, just talked about different things. But I needed more involvement, and I knew there were other widows that felt the same way I do based on our meetup and our discussions. And I went and I just created the online group. And now, even though it's not, in the thousands, but it's just enough. We have about 538 widows, Black women widows, but it's perfect. And I vet everyone that come in, that requests to join, because it's a group that I call a safe space. And
a safe space? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, Sabra, what is it about a Black woman's experience with grief over the loss of her husband that is different than other women who grieve over losing their husbands?
Well, that's a great question. On my website, I have several facts,
okay,
and statistics
Tell
about
us.
the Black woman widow. We go through so much. Number one, we're a minority already. We're a woman as well. And, being Black and having being dwindled down to a single income, that right there is tough on us, We have to be able to thrive. We have to survive without our husbands. We go through so much more than, a non-Black widow, because they have their privileges, We don't have the privileges that our non-Black widow counterparts have. So we struggle more. We have more happening with our mental health. So our grief is built up with, anger and just frustration. And we have so many things that we go through, even at work, that sometimes we keep to ourselves, We may not be as expressive to others as what I feel our non-white counterparts are. They're very expressive. I mean, it's just something that, to me, is just very noticeable. Whereas a lot of Black women will keep everything in, and we have to have someone to pull it out of us. Also, being a Black, widowed woman, we tend to not, use the resources that are out there that are available as far as counselors. So, our grief is basically just held within, and we need help expressing it and allowing people to come in and so that we can trust them with our grief. You know what I mean? It's just that we have so much that's coming our way that we have to deal with that other non-Black widows may not have. So we need that. We need that connection. We need that safe space to relieve ourselves, to relieve our emotions, and where other Black women widows get it, you know, and where they can't post in other online groups or discuss even in face-to-face groups where they will be, you know, where it'll be understood.
Right.
You know?
So you found that when you went to look for places where you could share and talk about your grief with other women who looked like you, that there was a void. And so you created this group that blogs, writes about, I know you have a podcast, talks about the experience and what it means to lose your partner, your life partner, someone you've planned probably your whole, you know, what your whole life was going to be like. What do women talk to you about? What do they say are their 1-2 biggest issues, biggest challenges they faced with being widowed?
Oh, that's a great question. The biggest challenges in being widowed is being told, you know, it's time to move on. You know, or, you know, you're young enough, you can find someone else. And that's discouraging. Yeah, they may be young. You know, I was, 47, and I was told, you know, by family members, oh, you're still young, baby. You can find someone. Well, I'm not looking to find anyone right now. You know, once I'm looking to find someone, then I can come to you about it, and then you can tell me that. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. And we're still grieving, you know, and we don't want anyone to bully us. You know, my theme is don't bully us out of our grief. You know, number one, it's like, oh, you're still young, or, you know, you'll be able to find someone. Don't worry. Or, you know, it's time to move on. You know, I think you've been grieving too long. And unfortunately, a lot of women, you know, have issues with the in-laws. You know, my in-laws are wonderful. They are wonderful, and I've just been blessed to have in-laws who helped me out, who were there for me. You know, once you lose a spouse, your income dwindles, you know? And there's times when you have to be like, you know what, I need some money. And my immediate family members, they were fine as well, and I don't want to, you know, not say anything. Of course, they were wonderful. Yeah,
we understand that you had in-laws were supportive, but what I hear you saying is that there are many widows who don't have that same support.
Right. They don't have that same support, and they need some, you know, they need an outlet. And I've, you know, when they have requested to join, you know, I get comments like, oh, my goodness, I am so thankful for this group. I don't have anyone to talk to who understands where I'm coming from. You may have widows who are ready to date as well. And, and there's other, you know, groups that focus mainly on dating as a widow, and they are great groups. There's young widows young widow dating. There's some other groups. But here, they feel comfortable just talking to Black widows, widows of color, who can understand what they're going through when dating. They feel comfortable posting about, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what just happened last night, and where they feel that if they post somewhere else that's inclusive of non-Black widows, they may not. They may feel a certain way. They may feel that they're being judged or misunderstood, or or maybe even banned from other spaces. But it's just here. We're here to listen. Especially in the group. In our group, we ask questions. We seek to understand. We listen. We provide answers if we have them. We meet up. We network. We connect. We vent. We show our successes, and we face our challenges with other widows who get it.
And so what kinds of questions do Black widows, that does not sound right, Black widows, to women who are widowed, women of color who lose their mate? What are the kinds of, tell us some of the questions. Take us into one of your groups. What's the conversation look like?
Well, I have 3 different groups.
Okay.
The main one is the main one.
Yes.
But I have another group, and the main one consists of everyone, is inclusive of all the widows. And then I have a second one that's Christian Christian oriented and very inspirational. And then listen to this. I have a secret group called Black Love for widows who it's a mature group. Let me put it that way.
Okay, for widows who are
ready to date, who are having have some questions about dating.
Yes,
who may divulge what their experience was the night before. So, but some of the questions are like, how do you handle your kids? Your kids are grieving. What do you do? How have you handled that? And how do you handle that? That's one question. Okay. Another question could be, my in-law. How do I handle my in-law? One widow calls it their outlaw. They're outlaws. And another question could be, let's see, I'm ready to move on. Give me some advice on, what to wear as far, when I go out on this date. What should I wear? How should I act? This is my first date. I haven't dated in 5 years. Help me get through this. What should, I say? Other widows, I've been dumped. And, I've been dumped because they say I'm a widow and they feel that I'm not ready to move on because I'm talking too much about my husband, my late husband. We get all kinds of questions.
Yes. And so what kind of tips do you share? Because, I've experienced all of those questions. I'm telling you, I too have experienced and wanted to find answers to. When my husband passed, I was 67 or so, and I didn't get the, you're still young enough, but I did get, you'll be ready to date soon. And, how long are you going to be grieving? Or comments about other women who lost their husbands around my age. And the comments would be, such and such, she hasn't gotten over it yet. I hope she does so that she can move on with her life. So you get this kind of, it's almost like no matter what your age, that you're almost not given this space to grieve, no matter how long it might take, one. And also I found that there was the assumption that I wanted to and should move on with someone else. And so, and that's what would make my life better and complete and more vibrant.
Oh my goodness.
You know, so I know
Yeah.
those are some of the things I experienced, and I don't believe I'm alone in that.
No,
And
you're
so I'm
not.
sure you've gotten the same kinds of things. So what do you say to women when they bring that kind of conversation to you?
Well, it's just not, and that's a good question as well. It's everyone dives into the comment or to the post and just give suggestions on what they've been through.
Oh,
and
okay.
Mm-hmm. And so I don't believe it's one thing to say. It's a group of, it's a conversation, it's a connection, it's a support group.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the purpose of it, because there's no right or wrong answer.
Oh, absolutely.
But, yeah, and there's, a lot of people also suggest counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Mental Health Awareness Month, but in July,
yes,
that's what I focus on, because it's National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay.
And so, I have widows in the group over 50 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some are just as content to be to stay where they are, just to stay widowed and not date, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you decide to date or not, that's fine. It's what you're ready for in the moment.
Exactly.
It's what you're ready for.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice that I got was to see a therapist, which I did. And that, I'm going to tell you, Sabra, that pretty much changed my life. That clearly was a turning point for me.
Yes.
And so that, having, I hear what you say about having someone to talk to in a safe place.
Yes.
Really made a difference. Now, it wasn't the only place that I went, because I had best friends and good friends and relatives and other widows. But adding that to my portfolio of support was great for me. In your faith, because you provide this online platform where women can ask questions, post questions, and then there's all this kind of response, this community online in your blog. You also have a magazine?
Yes.
Oh, tell us about that.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's my little baby now.
Okay, so tell us about that. Yes. What's the name of it?
It's called Today's Widowed Woman of Color.
Okay.
Project.
Yes.
I wanted to create an additional avenue for, Black and brown and beige widows, to have an outlet.
Okay.
Other than a widows group or a meetup, where they can take their time, relax, read some empowerment articles. I just envision widows, sipping tea, drinking wine, just flipping
I love that sipping wine.
Yes, yes. And just flipping through this digital magazine, just like they would.
Okay. So it's a digital magazine.
Yes, and you can download it, and it's free. And I'm telling you, it's just, I just want widows to identify with what's being relayed by widows like them.
Yes. And so how can someone get the digital copy?
They can go to blackwomenwidowsempowered.com and select the magazine tab, and it will take you to it. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
how
just as easy
wonderful.
As pie. It is.
Yes.
And it's 50 pages, and you can download it as a PDF. So I'm seeing more of this magazine to be, more of it to come, and more of it to be improved upon as well. So this was just my first stab at it. And I tell you, so many people have reached out to me and said, "This is great. How can I buy it?" And I said, "No, honey, it is free." And they were just so happy to hear that they could go to go read something that's about them. And I'm very excited to say that I was able to reach out to someone who was widowed in the entertainment industry. Sarah Finney Johnson. She is a consulting producer at BET for games, the show Games People Play.
Yes.
She's the creator of many other projects like Moesha, oh my goodness, The Game, Girlfriends.
Yes.
Yes.
And so she's interested in what you're doing.
Yes, I interviewed her, and there's an article in there about, she's been widowed since, I believe, 2000, for a few years now.
Okay.
And she was just a person, just another widow who I was talking to. When we got into the interview, it was nothing about what she does. It was all focused on what advice can you give. And one thing that she did say that really sparked a lot of conversation from, messages I received was that, she was told that it was time for her to clean out the closet, of that contained her husband's things. And it's been almost 4 years. And she was like, look, I'm cleaning it out when I'm ready.
Right.
And that right there was like, so many widows are at that point right now. I get many new widows who request to join the group, and they're not ready to clean their closets out. I have some widows who, it's been 2 years, and they like to see that their husband is still with them somehow. And so...
And that's the beauty, I think, of why, how we experience widowhood. What I've learned has to be from our own space. That I think it's so empowering to have a place to go where you can talk these things out and still be yourself. I know that for me, I needed to clean out right away. So I did that, and I had friends who helped me. I also know women who, as you say, 3-4 years later, they still have that space, or they still have the clothes, or they still have things that haven't been moved or touched. And both are okay, at least according to to what my own experience, that both are okay. And as I went to as you were talking, I went to your website, and I've opened the magazine, and first of all, it just looks phenomenal. It's just visually appealing. And I see that your first paragraph says, widowhood can be lonely. Late nights and early mornings feel all the more exhausting when you're doing it alone. Yes, particularly if that wasn't what your experience had been for so many years, because I got married at what now I look at as a very young age, at 26. And so I was with my husband for 40 years. And that was during very much developmental time. And that's how much of my experience, it was really shaped by that partnership. And so I just love the magazine, and I think it is something that, you don't find. And having that space and that place you can go, it seems like you really tapped into a void that's out there.
Yeah, I believe I did. And I'm just blessed that, I created something that, is needed.
Yes.
Especially in today's world.
And you also...
more than ever.
Yes, and you also authored Widowed But Not Wounded.
Right, yes.
What advice did you give Sabra in that book?
Well, that book consists of 12 other widows who wrote stories of how they were able to move forward, how they were able to empower others. So it's more of an upbeat compilation. Yes. And my specific chapter talked about anger. You know, once you're newly widowed, you know, we are angry. We're just angry.
Yes. I can relate to that.
Yes. I held on. Yes. And especially being a black woman, you know, we already have that label, you know, the strong black angry woman, or, you know, and I just kind of tapped into that, how I was able to just kind of move forward from my anger. And it's okay to be angry. It's an emotion. But
why were you angry? I know why I was angry. Why were you angry?
I was angry because, and you know, I'll be transparent here, and I've told this story before in the group, but, you know, prior to him getting sick, I was going to leave him. And, you know, we were having issues. And I was going to leave him. And so when he called and, you know, made that phone call and said, you know, Save, and, you know, he would call me Save, I feel sick. And I'm like, he feels sick? He rarely feels sick. You know, my stomach is really hurting. That right there just started a whole new turnover for me. Because when I told him to go to the emergency room or urgent care, then urgent care, told him to go to the ER. And I met him at the ER, and then it was a big mass behind his stomach. You know, from there it just went kind of downhill. I did have him for 9 months, but he was diagnosed with Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and my anger is that maybe almost at the end of when he knew he may not live, you know, we talked and he apologized about everything, you know, and I'm like, wow.
So you were angry that had not happened earlier.
Yeah, and we could have, or not only that, but we became in a good space again, and it was wonderful. And then God took him away when we were back together. And so yes, I was angry. I was angry because I was my contract had ended 3 weeks before he died, but I didn't tell him that I didn't have a job for maybe 2 weeks, and a week later he died. So I didn't have a job. So it was so much.
Yes,
it was just going downhill from there.
Yes.
And
And so in your book, you share your story as well as the stories of other widows who had in their experience. Yeah, I know I was angry because we had made so many plans after both of us retired. And we were making the plans. We knew where we were going to be in Florida, and we had all these plans, and the kids would be out of school, all of that. And then in an instant, it seemed like he was taken away from me. That's how I saw it then. And so I was angry about those circumstances, and also angry because I felt either I could have done something to prevent it, or he could have done something to prevent it. And you know that as I talk about it or think about it now, it almost makes no sense to me, you know, because when you look at it rationally, you know, how could anyone control those circumstances? But it was a period of time that I went through and widows go through, you know, having to have some somebody to talk to or a space where you can express those feelings, I think is so important. And that's the service, what you provide.
Yes. Yes,
it's
that avenue.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, Sabra Robinson, like I could go on and talk with you all day about these things.
Yes.
Yes, and I just so appreciate you providing this space, this opportunity. You're creating that kind of impact where there is a void. For women of color to be able to go and talk about, because again, as I say, it is more likely that we as women of color who in fact are married, who have a life partner, will outlive that life partner or be caring for that life partner, which I think is the other side of the coin when we talk about, because oftentimes, widowhood is preceded by a time of caring for someone that you have to, care. And that puts on a whole series of stress and other kinds of things that we experience as well. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I absolutely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
With my husband, I did care for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I was blessed to have 9 months with him, and he had to stop work.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going through chemo,
mm-hmm.
and his mom even came down to live with us for about 6 months.
Yes.
So absolutely.
Yes, and then you also brought up another issue. See, this is why we'll have to have another conversation, because you brought up an issue about finances, where you were financially at that point. And when you're working with a partner and there's two of you, that's a whole different thing than when you single by yourself and all of a sudden have this new thing that you have to deal with financially. So again, Sabra Robinson, we thank you for providing this space, this opportunity where there is a void, and you are creating this impact. And we're going to have you back so we can continue the conversation. But thank you for what you do with and for Black women.
Oh, thank you. You are so welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Ignite to impact.